Three guys, hot debates, bold takes, and yes, we may not always find the end zone, but hey, we always put points on the board. Settle for three, where the only thing we take seriously is the game.
Whoa, guys. Episode 8, Settle for 3. Joey, Cameron, Evan, how you guys doing?
Awesome.
Doing well.
We're getting deep into the
Deep.
end of all the football seasons.
It's almost
So-
like we're starting to figure out how this works.
Yeah,
I
so
don't know,
you,
I don't know if I go that far.
so think about this. Let's forget the UFL for a second. We have really one football season left for football season. It's the Super Bowl. Real quickly, Evan, go-to Super Bowl food.
Oh, go-to Super Bowl food. I'm gonna go some burnt ends.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a big smoker kind of guy.
Okay.
So you
I didn't know
cook
that
some
about
burnt
you.
ends, put them on some sliders. Perfect football food.
All right, Cameron.
I don't know, but anything I'm going to say is second to that. I'm going to Evan's place for the Super Bowl. If I had to say it, it's probably wings.
Yeah.
Mine.
I'm right there with you. I'm boring to wings. But guys, let's get into the show. And we got a new segment, Settle for 3 News Dump. And Cameron, you're up first.
You got it. So I'm going to try and keep everything short and quick. So this week, we actually had Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator from Ohio State, go to and essentially enter the transfer portal, going to Big Ten rival school Penn State. Over the last 3 seasons that he was there, he was possibly the best defensive coordinator and strategic mind on the defensive side in college football. Over the last 3 seasons, he's become iteratively better, going from number 32 in his first season to now number 1 in his third. His new deal is $3.1 million, ironically beating out the Michigan defensive coordinator Wink Martindale for $3.1 million, which is amazing. So is this the final piece of the Penn State puzzle to become nationally relevant? We'll find out. Transitioning on, we have Shane Beamer at South Carolina. South Carolina had an excellent season last year with a resounding couple of wins to end off the season, including a win over Clemson. Over the last 4 years, Shane Beamer has gone 29-22. May not sound like much, but prior to his arrival, they were 13-22 over the previous 3 seasons. His updated salary is $8.1 million and goes through 2030. And with Lenora Sellers on his roster, I think they're well endowed for a couple of great years. Alrighty, transitioning over to Bill Belichick. Turns out he was actually willing to sign the contract. Joey was actually the person that brought this to my attention last week. Turns out if he had not actually signed, that there was a clause in there that he just had to hand back over the $10 million contract from that initial year. Over the next 5 years, he will be paid $10 million per year. Do we think he'll be successful? Let us know in the comments below. We're a bit uncertain. And last but not least, we have NFL news. Pete Carroll has taken the job with the Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders are 24-27 over the last 3 years. The prior 2 coaches in Josh McDaniels and Antonio Pierce were not exactly leading the charge there, and it's felt all kind of downhill since 2018 with the John Gruden disaster. Pete Carroll over his career has been 137-89-1, so it'll be interesting to see him come back. But we're excited to see what happens with the NFL.
Evan, you want to jump in here on anything that stands out to you on these headlines?
Yeah, first and foremost, Penn State got a great hire. You look at Ohio State, and they had, of course, especially in the playoffs, they had one of the best offenses, just absolutely showed out. But one of the reasons that they were able to show out so much is because their defense took so many strides, especially late in the season, and got every opponent's offense off the field so quickly. So they got an incredible hire on that, and it's going to be a really tough loss for Ohio State. South Carolina, yeah, obviously you're going to extend Beaver. He has really, in the last couple of years, taken a lot of steps up in the recruiting and showed some real flashes last season toward the end when Lenore Sellers finally got healthy. So really good on that. And then lastly, Pete Carroll's a good hire. He's got a lot of tools on that Vegas offense. I mean, you look at Brock Bowers, just incredible player, and I'm excited for what he can do for what he did over at the Seahawks and bring it over to Vegas.
My quick points on Knowles, I just found this funny. Ohio State asked him not to attend the national championship parade while he was considering taking this job. I just thought that was a little Big Ten
Petty.
gamesmanship for you. Yeah, petty. I was going to say Big Ten gamesmanship. The deal with Shane Beamer, he was 20-18 through his first 3 seasons in Columbia, and I'm in Charlotte, and I'll tell you, like, people wanted him fired if he had a bad start to this year. So to go 9-4 and get the extension, a lot of short-term memory in Columbia, but at the end of the day, I think it was a good decision. On Belichick, the whole buyout dropping to $1 million after June is so intriguing. I think all the head coaching positions have been filled as of today. Maybe there's one or two left, I'm not sure. But so I think he's going to be coaching UNC next year, unless he just gets cold feet or goes through spring practice and is like, I can't coach this team. But I gotta wonder, guys. Tom Brady proved he could win without Belichick. Do you think maybe Belichick is like, hey, I can't win in the NFL without Tom. Let me go to college and see if I can make a few college football playoffs with UNC, because the ACC isn't exactly that strong. I could see UNC with the right players making the college football playoff, and then, maybe he's gonna pad his resume a bit there. And then finally, Pete Carroll with the Raiders. Guys, AFC West has the best coach division in the National Football League. Pete Carroll, Andy Reid, Sean Payton, and Jim Harbaugh. 3 of those guys have Super Bowl rings, and one of them coached in a Super Bowl. That was Harbaugh when he was with the 49ers. So that's going to be a really well-coached division, and I think it's going to make it a lot more competitive. So with that said, guys, let's move on to the meat and potatoes of today's show. Here's our rundown. We're going to talk about the AFC and NFC Championship games. We had one good one and not so good one. We got another rendition of Bear vs. Bull. Basically, we're taking stock of college football teams, who's trending up and who's trending down. And then we're going to be lame, guys, and give our way too early top 10. I hate it. I hate preseason rankings in general and early season rankings, but this is the trend this time of year, so let's do it. But first,
Thanks for putting us on the pedestal of success, Joey. Really appreciate it.
But first, we have someone needs to pay up, because we made some bets last week, and actually Cam made the challenge. And so let's go through our bets for these 2 games, starting in the AFC. Evan, you won. You took Kansas City money line. So did I. Cam, you actually took Kansas City to. No, you took Buffalo money line. How
I
are
took
you?
Buffalo to win.
Yeah, that's what money line means. Uh, what? How are you feeling now that you lost that? I mean, it was close, like we all thought.
For the bet made last week, I will be jumping on a table this week. It will be made
Okay.
as a short.
Okay.
My recording audience will probably be no other than Evan. And yeah, it'll probably be involved in our next intro if I had to take a wild guess.
Well, you had an opportunity to, at least tie with Evan in the second game, but you took Washington to cover and Philly to win. So you also lost that bet. And Evan, you won this bet probably by halftime. That was just, I guess we'll just get into the headlines, but uh, that was just a domination by the Eagles there, Evan.
Yeah. Don't if you're taking betting advice, please don't do it from any of us, but especially don't do it from Cameron.
So Cameron, you're gonna jump on a table. Uh, you never clarified how high the table is gonna be.
I'll be jumping from the ground onto said table. I'll be doing it for the Bills Mafia as a remembrance of what this season could have been. So like an in memoriam.
And you're gonna cover all your own medical costs. And I think Evan should have to approve the table you jump on.
Oh yeah, this is by far it's got to be a good table. It's got to be kind of solid enough that you're gonna feel it, but flimsy enough that it breaks.
I'm almost gonna say you should go to your nearest Buffalo Wild Wings, sponsor us, and jump on their bar. And
I
Oh,
don't
I
think the
get
bar is
arrested.
going to break.
well, are you trying to get the table to break? Was that your goal?
Oh, yeah, that's the
Oh
objective.
yeah.
If I'm just jumping on a table, it's not entertaining.
So you want to go full WWE style on this, huh?
Absolutely.
All right, guys, let's actually talk about these games. Kansas City 32, Buffalo 29. I know I was wrong on the Washington pick, but I was dead on this one. I said Kansas City would be losing in the fourth quarter and they would come back and win. That's exactly what happened. To me, just real quickly, three key plays that stand out. The 4th and inches that the Chiefs stopped early in the fourth quarter, they called that a turnover on downs, and the review was upheld. I think if it was called the other way around, the review would have also been upheld. Do you guys agree on that one?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was way too hard to tell. That was a really big skull that was going on there in the middle.
The really screwy part, we're always going to go back to it, is that you had two officials. One of them said he was short. One of them said he was over.
Yep.
It's in
The shorter
Kansas City.
one
Which one
Yeah.
won?
Yep.
Yep.
Shorter 1-1. Yep. I saw it. And they pointed that out on TV. I mean, it was just so hard to say. I mean, Allen could have easily reached the ball out too, but then who knows if he fumbles. My second play, Bills' final possession, 4th and 5. Chiefs bring an exotic-looking blitz. The corner runs untouched into the pocket. Allen pretty much throws a no-look pass down the field. You think incomplete. Dalton Kincaid almost caught that ball. That ball went through his hands. And Evan, that would have put them in field goal range because it was right at like the mark for longest field goal.
Trust me, I was getting pretty nervous during those last couple drives that I was going to be the one jumping on the table. So.
And then guys, my final play before I toss it to you. Chiefs' final possession. They're trying to run out the clock. 3rd and 9. Mahomes rolls out. Oh, 2nd and 9. Mahomes rolls out, finds Pacheco for the first down catch. Tony Romo literally called that on the broadcast. He said,
Ironically, I didn't have any audio, and I said the exact same thing. I was expecting a play action pass there.
He said Mahomes was going to have 2nd and 3rd down with the ball in his hands to make a play. And he rolled out and found the open receiver. He would have ran that ball if Pacheco wasn't open. And then on the next sequence of downs, I think it was 2nd and 9, Mahomes finds P-Ride out of the backfield, easy 17-yard scamper to clinch the game. Guys, those were two genius play calls, low risk, high reward. Mahomes was never throwing the ball deep on either of those plays. And so I just think excellent play calling to help him close it out. Evan, why don't we start off with your reaction to this game?
Yeah, the story with this is that these were two of just the most amazing NFL quarterbacks willing their teams to win on both sides. You had Patrick Mahomes, who again shows how methodical he can be picking apart a defense over and over, never makes the same mistake twice. And then you have Josh Allen, who is just incredible at just running down a defense and getting physical with them. And that's what he did. You know, the Bills really, they're almost a two-headed monster from a rushing perspective, because you basically have two running backs in the backfield at all times with Josh Allen back there too. So this was one of the most exciting games I've watched all season. Going forward, I don't know if the Super Bowl is going to top this game, if I'm being completely honest. It was a really fun game to watch, really close from you can see the stat lines there are almost identical, except for some penalties that I'm sure Cameron would love to point out are favoring the Bills a little bit more from penalty perspective, but just a really fun game to watch.
Cam, didn't you say last week, didn't you have a stat that said the Chiefs were had a perfect record or had less penalties in every game they've won under Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs?
They are 12-0 since 2021
Yeah.
of not having more penalties than their opponents.
And look what happened. 5 penalties for 21 yards, 6 penalties for 48 yards.
Agreed. Now, I do have 3 takeaways from this game. First and foremost, Joey, one missed call from that game that I think needs to be called out. Xavier Worthy in the second quarter did not catch that did not catch that pass. That ball hit the ground.
The one that was deep and with 3 guys on him.
On the right side, and the ball hits the ground. Yeah. Okay,
close.
That's not possession. Yeah, it's not close. The ball hit the ground. He didn't have possession. That's it. Number 2, I have never watched a game that was more a game of inches than this game. On 6 different occasions, the Bills had the opportunity for 4th and inches. And 4 of those times they got it, and arguably they could have gotten it on the 5th. I'm not even going to try and argue that point. You got to have a play other than just Josh Allen to the left. That
Yeah.
doesn't work every time. And we saw,
they got.
from Chris Jones, that doesn't work every time, even if he's lined up off sides. Number 3, Andy Reid outcoached Sean McDermott in this game.
Mhm.
And I really think that should be the biggest takeaway here. If you're going to put the referees or the officials in a place where they have to call the game, I would lean Chiefs 10 out of 10 times. And I don't feel that McDermott tried to remove that from being the problem with the game.
Evan, didn't you and I agree last week that Allen had to be a superstar and perfect to win this game?
Yep.
And he was pretty good,
Yeah.
but he wasn't good.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, he was pretty close. There were definitely no major mistakes that happened. Not even big mistakes that happened from Josh Allen. It was just a
That ball gets
team
caught by
effort.
Kincaid.
Yeah, and that Kansas City defense, they were just all over the Bills. I mean, it was crazy to watch, especially that last sack that happened. That was just completely untouched. I mean,
1000%.
what an incredible play that was dialed up at the right time.
Yeah, you just can't count out Patrick Mahomes. Like
No.
I thought maybe when they kicked that field goal to go up 32-29, I'm like, maybe Josh Allen can do something here, but the defense, we talked last week, Chris Jones is the only Pro Bowler on that Chiefs team, but the schemes that they draw up are so good. But they're going to have to drop some new schemes for one of the guys they're facing next week, the Philadelphia Eagles. Because, guys, Saquon Barkley is a man on a mission. Eagles just blow out the Commanders 55-23. I took Commanders money line. Maybe there's a comment coming up where someone makes fun of me. I don't know. Evan has that covered. But just quickly, my points on this game. I texted you guys after the first Commanders drive. I called it the Notre Dame drive. 18 plays, 54 yards, 7 minutes off the clock. But then the Eagles say, okay, we're Ohio State. They score on their first play of their first possession, force a fumble, score immediately again. It's 14-3 before you could blink. Philly also had 28 points off 4 Washington turnovers. So, Cam, you can't win if you're Washington if you turn the ball over 4 times.
Yeah, I have in my notes, and honestly, I'll be super brief. Jaden Daniels didn't lose this game. The
No, he
team
did not.
around him, I felt, did. And at the end of the day, there's a roster disparity between these two teams. If you just look at who the most talented, put together team in the NFL is, excuse me, not dealing with coaching, and I don't think that their coach is bad, but you have the skill positions, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon, like it's ridiculous. Your offensive line and your defensive line are both insanely talented. And then you deal with the defensive, the linebackers and the corners. You kind of can't stop it. I'm really excited for the Super Bowl, but I'm not surprised that this ended the way it did.
Evan, you took Eagles to cover. You were dead on. You could have taken them minus whatever it was, 30.5, and you would have won this bet.
Yeah. Yeah. To Cameron's point, Jaden Daniels, he did everything he could in this game. And I said this last week. The Eagles are just too complete of a team where the Commanders, Jaden Daniels got them to this point in the season, and he played phenomenal. It was just a mismatch at almost every position. And like you said, it wasn't close. You could see the stats there. I mean, 1 yard short from on the rushing to match their passing yards. That just doesn't happen. Saquon Barkley, it's unfortunate for the Commanders that they got an Eagles team that is playing out of their mind against the best running back in the league right now, who is just having the best season. So it was never close. And all I got to say is the better team, the more complete team won, and they showed why they need to be in the Super Bowl.
Guys, I want to give a quick shout out to former Clemson running back Will Shipley. 77 yards on the Eagles' second to final drive. Their last drive, they knelt it 2 times. 77 yards and a touchdown. That was 5 yards short of his total rushing yards for the entire season. During the regular season, he had 82 rushing yards. So 77 on one drive. Philly was eating it up. They loved it. He's a really popular guy here in the Carolinas, so I just wanted to give him a shout out.
Well, I was just going to say, it just shows for the Commanders to really be a contender going forward in the next couple of years, Obviously, they got to get a couple more key positions held up, but Dan Quinn has got to figure out how to stop the run. He's
Yeah.
always been so bad everywhere he's ever been at stopping the run. Good at stopping the pass, but that's only half the equation.
Well, then when the second half rolls around, sometimes he doesn't like to prepare.
Yeah, like the Patriots. Super Bowl.
Yeah, or the Eagles. With,
Yeah.
with 2 minutes to go, it was what, 14-12 in this game?
Yeah,
And then
it was a close game.
Eagles scored a touchdown, and then the Commanders fumbled the kickoff or the first play. I don't remember. It's 28-12 going into halftime. So
Yeah.
it was. Anyways, digress.
You guys want to guess what the line is for the Super Bowl?
Ooh, I'm going to say 4.5 Chiefs.
Okay, Cam,
I'm gonna go 1.5. I could almost see a pick 'em.
1.5 who?
Chiefs.
Yeah, you're dead on. 1.5 Chiefs. So it's going to be a pick 'em. I think it's going to be a really good game because they played in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. It was really good then too. Guys, we're going to move on to one of my favorite segments, Bear or Bull. This is the team stock watch edition. But basically, is your team in a bear market? Are they trending down, or are they in a bull market? Are they trending up? And we're going to just be positive and start with our trending up teams. And Cam, you're up first. You picked Texas Tech. You like
I
them.
did. I got to tell you, I am 100% in the Texas Tech bandwagon going into next season. I'll list my reasons as to why. I'll try and keep it short. So the head coach, Joey McGuire, is 16-9 over the last 2 seasons. Big reasons for, really being able to trend up. There's 3 things I look for. Number 1, you have seniority on a roster and being able to maintain it. They have 87 players returning next season, led by a quarterback who put up 3,300 yards and 27 touchdowns, and a linebacker with 118 tackles last season, and Jacob Rodriguez. They have the number 25 recruiting class in the country, and they are averaging number 4 over the last 3 seasons in the Big 12, which is pretty good. And then last but not least, it takes good transfer portal presence. They've been number 3, or they are number 3 in the transfer portal right now. So they currently have 7 4-star athletes, which includes 3 defensive linemen. Their defense is going to be nasty. And then the closest Big 12 team to them is actually Colorado. I'm really excited to see how they work out, but I expect them in the playoff next season.
So I haven't watched a Texas Tech game since Michael Crabtree against Texas.
Can't say I have either.
Evan,
No,
you have anything to add on this team?
Yeah, no, Texas Tech is killing it right now. They're definitely on the uptrend, but I can't say I watched a single snap last season.
Okay, well, leave it to Cam to pick a team like that. Moving on, a game I know Cam and I watched because he was at my house for Thanksgiving for this. Evan, you're keen on Georgia Tech and Haynes King.
Yeah, love it. Brent Key, he's done an incredible job. That's their head coach since he took over halfway through the 2022 season. This was a team that won 3 games in 2021, and they were on pace to not win 2 games in 2022 when he took over. Next year, you've got quarterback Haynes King and their lead rusher Jamal Haynes, who combined for 34 total touchdowns last year. They're coming back. Then on the other side, their biggest room for improvement is on their defense, and they're going to get some help. They've got the number 3 safety coming in next year, Tay Harris, and they've also got a pretty good transfer class coming in as well. And let's be honest, it's the ACC.
Yeah.
They started out with an upset last year, and then they didn't stop there. They got a few upsets last year against an amazing Miami team, and a couple others along the way. Really, their worst game last year was Louisville, who was ranked 19 at the time, and then Notre Dame, who was the runner-up in the national championship. Other than that, they didn't have any bad losses. So I'm really keen on Georgia Tech to come in next year and possibly be in that ACC championship game.
Yeah, if there's a conference that's wide open, it's that one and probably a Big 12. Cam, you got anything to add on E-Tech?
Georgia Tech isn't bad, but historically, when they've had a good season, they've taken a step back the following season. I know they're returning a good bit of talent. I'm excited to see what happens. I think it's an interesting take from Evan.
All right. All right, guys, we're going to move on to my team. I promise you, I am not trying to be a homer, but I'm really excited about what the Gators could do next season.
Joey, where'd you go to college?
USF. Hey, Florida rejected me, so shame on them. Thanks for bringing that up, though. After starting 4-5 last year, Florida rebounded to win their final 4 games, including wins over LSU and Ole Miss, effectively knocking both teams out of the playoff chase. This is a team that lost back-to-back weeks to Texas and Georgia by a combined score of 83-37, which is pretty terrible. And during that Texas game, it was announced that Napier was guaranteed another year, and they just got shellacked that game. DJ Lagway, a lot of promise. He needs more polish for sure, but he has a beautiful deep ball. The game seemed to slow down for him. I want to see him use his legs more next season. Just 101 yards on 50 carries. He's an athletic guy, so he can certainly do more there. Also on offense, Florida returns their All-American center Jake Slaughter and true freshman running back Jaden Baugh, who led the team in rushing yards and touchdowns last year. They do need to retool a bit on defense. They lost Jack Pyburn to LSU in a transfer portal, and one of their leading tacklers, Cam Jackson, was a senior. But guys, I want to temper my expectations. Florida's going to have one of the toughest schedules in the country again next year. Listen to this. Home games against Texas and Georgia, which is in Jacksonville, but it's their home game this year. Texas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Those are their home games. Their road games are LSU, Miami, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss. So I'm not optimistic. And while Bailey Napier finished the year strong, there's a strong chance they could start 3-3 or 2-4 next year. Their first, and this is where I want to get you guys to chime in. Their first 6 games are Long Island University, USF at home, at LSU, at Miami, home against Texas, Texas A&M. I mean, do you guys see a situation where they're 4-2? I don't.
I mean, the only thing I have to say with Florida is you never know. Florida is just one of those teams that can look just the worst one week, and then the next week they upset a top 5 team. You really never know. Exactly. Yeah, you absolutely never know with Florida. And what I'm really curious about is they stepped up in a big way this past year, especially with a gauntlet of a schedule that they had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My only concern really is Napier is an amazing recruiter, but I still don't see him develop his players as much as a lot of the other coaches do. You look at Anthony Richardson, starter in the NFL, had a really mediocre career at Florida. So I'm surprised with them. I'm happy for them. I'm definitely up on them as well compared to where I thought they were going to be, but I'm really interested to see next year.
Listen, this team is not an SEC championship contender or a playoff contender. Let's be real. But I think an 8-win regular season or 9-win is a step in the right direction for this team, but I just don't know if they're going to get there.
So I agree with you. One point I do want to make, and it's really confusing to me, Evan will probably agree. The scheduling that the SEC is currently doing, where it's the inverse for 2 years in a row, is really weird. So, like, Alabama will play Georgia 2 years in a row this year, which is not something that has ever happened. Florida had a bear of a schedule, to put it PG, for 2024, and for it not to get any better in 2025 is pretty sacrilegious for the SEC to do to them. I agree with you, Joey. I think 8-4. And Billy had a fantastic year.
Yeah.
And the saddest part is 8-4, and they might still be a top 12 team, but they may not make the playoff. And that's a really sad realization to have to play LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, and Georgia. Even if you just lose those games, that means you can't have a fluke anywhere else. And those are all 4 of the top, 10 teams in the country, if not higher.
And USF isn't exactly a pushover. I mean, they played well against Alabama the last few years. I mean,
comparatively to the other schools I mentioned, they're easy, but to your point, they're not a rollover.
I'll say Long Island, It's the only guaranteed win I see.
I didn't know that was
Unless
a
you're Florida
school.
State, Mike Norvell might find a way to lose that game.
Yeah, Florida State should be a guaranteed win. So we'll see. Guys, let's go to our teams that are in the bear market or trending down. And this is a really interesting team, Cam. Southern Cal. Did you guys know that there's general managers in college football now? Because USC just hired away Notre Dame's general manager the other day. I didn't know that was a thing. This Lincoln Riley experiment, dude, is maybe coming crashing very soon.
So I'm actually going to go off what I've written here. So
Okay.
USC is 25-14 over the last 3 years. It's really all I've got. Outside of those, has Lincoln Riley met anyone's expectations
Yeah.
in being at USC? I mean, you have to think people are wanting USC to actually come in and, make a conference title. Then they move to the Big Ten. It becomes significantly harder. So you have to recruit better. You have to pull in transfer portal. You have to do better. Instead, you go and lose your best receiver, Evan, not to Tennessee, and Zachariah Branch. You lose a whole bunch of talent, and seemingly nothing comes in. Nothing works. Miller Moss is gone. Caleb Williams, there was supposed to be Miller Moss there. It just hasn't worked. I don't think from a defensive side it's getting any better. I don't think from an offensive side it's getting any better. And I think the expectations of a pretty needy USC program are about to come to a head. I think this is the end for Lincoln Riley at USC this year.
He has lost 4 more games in 3 seasons at USC than he did in 5 seasons at Oklahoma, Evan.
Yeah, it's Lincoln Riley. I really liked him at Oklahoma. At the time, I thought it was a great hire for USC. And now you're kind of seeing how everything's just falling apart. I mean, it's a tale of 2 seasons. USC is one of those teams that every year they're going to be talked about on the national level as being a contender. But with the people at the helm right now, it's just not working out.
The other thing that just doesn't make sense to me, USC Southern California, you should have more money than anyone. And yet you find a way not to. How does that even work? You're in Southern California. How are you getting beaten out by, Austin, Texas, or Tuscaloosa, Alabama? Even Clemson, I would take over them.
I just don't know how you're gonna replicate those Pete Carroll years. I mean, I don't know that Lincoln Riley is all show and no substance. I mean, he has the look, but I don't think he can probably win 9 or 10 games for you many years, right? I just don't think he has what it takes to have an elite program.
Joey, the only thing I'm going to fight you on that, I think Lincoln Riley is a good coach. I think USC was a bad fit. He's good being a big fish in a small pond, but not the opposite of that. When he was at Oklahoma, what made him special is his ability to coach quarterbacks that were coming into a school and wanted to stick out. When he has this kind of problematic, aspirational goals from everyone around him, I don't think he's quite up to the task. I don't think he's a bad coach. I just think he's in over his head at a really big school.
Well, didn't he announce he was leaving Oklahoma like the season after it was announced Oklahoma was going to the SEC? It was really close to it, but
it was
anyways,
close. Yeah.
he
How
got
ironic that USC joined
Yeah.
the Big Ten.
exactly. I mean, it's maybe an even more difficult. It's not a more difficult conference, but it's a close second.
Imagine him moving to a Baylor or something. That could be
Yeah.
really fun to watch.
The Big 12 is crazy, dude. Speaking of that, let's move on to Evan's team. Nightmare season for Oklahoma State. Started 3-0, lost their final 9 games. All 9 losses were conference games, Evan.
Yeah, you go from a 10-4 season in 2023 to 3-9 this season at just last in your conference. It's a bad look for Mike Gundy over there. He's been there for so long. In a majority of the seasons that he's there, he's ranked in the top 15. The majority of the seasons he's there, he has 10-win seasons. And it's just been going downhill for the last couple of years with a lot of ups and downs. And, here's the thing. Ollie Gordon, you look at him 2 years ago, best running back in the league, 1,700 yards, tons of touchdowns. He decides to come back, was convinced to come back instead of declaring for the draft. Bad play calling is the reason that Oklahoma State has been so bad. This past year, he dropped almost 1,000 yards and about, I think, half the amount of touchdowns. he was set up for failure with the system that they had. Now going into next year, yeah, they're getting a new OC in Doug Meacham. Unfortunately, Doug, he's coming off of a few years at TCU as their wide receiver coach. He's gone back and forth a couple times as an OC, and he's had some success at Kansas and when he was at TCU for 1 year as their OC, he had a pretty good record. But he's come again. There's a reason he didn't stick it out at TCU, right? I'm not sure if he's the guy that's going to be the one to call the big plays going forward. I think this is going to be a pretty rough couple years for Oklahoma State, and I don't know how much longer Mike Gundy is gonna stick it out there. He's been there since 2005, and it might be time to make a change.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. The mullet's not helping out, is it, Cam?
No, it's not great.
The one question I have for you, Evan, and it's kind of the Boise State complex right now. Boise State went what, 14-0, or sorry, 13-1 last season before they lost. No, sorry, they lost to Oregon. They were 12-2. The question that I have, Boise State next season, I don't know that they will make the playoff because they would have to go undefeated in conference again and have to have an excellent year. On the other side of that, you have a team like an Oklahoma State where we know what Mike Gundy is capable of because usually he's a 7-5, 8-4, maybe a 9-3 on a fringe year coach. I don't think he's going to be worse. So the idea of trending down into next season, I don't think he will be worse than 3-9.
I don't know. I really don't. Looking at their schedule next year, they don't exactly have the easiest schedule. They're not in the easiest conference anymore. That conference is on the upswing, and this is a team that has not dealt well with all the realignments. And they're not getting a bunch of big hitters coming in next year. They're kind of middle of the pack as far as recruiting goes. And you say that only fringe years he's had big seasons. Majority of the time, he's up in the conversation for the conference championship. Majority of the time, they're getting
4 is a conference championship for them.
I'm just saying that this is a team that over time, and I mean, if we're looking at it just from a perspective of averages, they are trending down probably most in the country than anybody else.
One statement I'll make is by competitive depth, the Big 12 is the best conference in the United States.
Period. Well, that's not a great segue into my other trending down team because it's a Big 12 team. Cincinnati, thanks, Cam, again. Cincinnati Big Bearcats are trending down. This team is just 3 seasons removed from a college football playoff appearance. In those 3 seasons, they've gone 17-20. The last 2 seasons under Scott Satterfield, who came over from Louisville, 8-16. Their transition to the Big 12 has not been ideal. 4-14 in conference. That's the worst conference record compared to the 3 other teams that joined them in 2013. That would be UCF, BYU, and Houston. Now, UCF, they've all haven't been great, but Cincinnati had the worst record out of all of those. This past season, Cincinnati started 5-2, lost their final 5 games. Looking ahead, one positive, they have the 22nd best transfer portal class in the last cycle, according to On3. But guys, I mean, I don't really take a lot of stock in that because you just don't know who these transfers are or what they're going to do after these guys, are third stringers on their old team, and that's why they're transferring. As far as the roster is concerned, leading rusher Corey Kinner had 1,100 yards last season. He's going pro. Brendan Sorby, he's returning. He had a solid year last year. He originally was at Indiana and then transferred to Cincy. 2,800 yards, 18 touchdowns, 7 picks last season. Also had 447 yards on the ground and 9 touchdowns. And guys, pretty much all I got to say about Cincy right here is they haven't had 3 straight losing seasons since 1992. They could do that this year if they have a losing record. And you can bet your bottom dollar Satterfield is going to be looking for new work if that happens. Would you agree?
Yeah. Cincy's always one of those teams that they're just right on the cusp of they could be a really cool team to watch.
Yeah.
In some years, they are. And then you have years like this one where it shows right at the beginning of the season, and then it's downhill.
Yeah. Anything, Cam?
Honestly, no. I think I would put my stock in Oklahoma State before I put my stock in Cincy.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, guys, it's time to move on. We're gonna give our mock or our way too early top tens, but before we do that, this is the final ranking, final AP poll ranking of the season. Ohio State 6-time finishing number one in the AP poll. There's not a lot on here that really surprises me. You guys may disagree. Just a few notes. 5 teams held the number one spot at one point this season. Evan, do you want to guess what the other 4 teams are that were number one?
Well, let's see. We got Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, Oregon, and who was the final?
You can name it. Okay.
Alabama. That's right. Right when they lost to Vandy. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Evan.
And speaking of Alabama, Kalen DeBoer's first season. We're saying DeBoer, right, guys? What did we call him last week?
Well, Evan has like a weird name for it. He calls him like DeBoer or something.
I was
It's like some Tennessee Hill people kind of convo.
Yeah, they're
something like your people.
they're number 17. That broke a streak of 16 consecutive top 10 finishes. Last time that happened was Nick Saban's debut in 2007. Cam, any surprises on this top 25 for you?
No, I think there's a couple in here that you could pick and choose at. Actually, the only one I'll ask, and maybe I haven't even looked, to not see Florida ranked in here is pretty hard to believe. I would take Florida easily over the top 21 teams, and as I'm going through it, I might take them against the top 16 teams. The way that Florida finished up the season by how powerful they were and the way that they were playing, I would easily take them over Colorado and PSU and Missouri and Army.
I mean, maybe. I'm not upset about it. I mean, honestly, these final rankings mean nothing to me. They really only mean stuff to small schools that just want to say, hey, look what we accomplished, Evan.
Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of surprises here, to be honest. The only standout for me is South Carolina being as far back as they are at 19.
Yeah,
I would agree.
True. All right, well, that brings us to our way too early top 10s. We all had the same teams in the top 5, just in different orders. 6 through 10 is where we saw a little bit of variety. And Cam, I want to start with you. No Bama?
No Bama. I don't know that Bama's not going to be a top 10 team when we enter the season. It's interesting not knowing your quarterback. There's a lot of transfers that are kind of ongoing. Obviously, there's a whole nother portal entry that's going to happen in the next couple of months. There is potential for change there. The biggest call out for me, though, I'm really looking for LSU to make a run next season. I think LSU has a lot of potential here in the SEC. You can go through the rest of my 6 through 10. For the most part, we have a lot of the same teams.
Yeah.
And then some we don't.
So Evan, you weren't concerned about bias, and you threw Tennessee in there.
Absolutely. And before I cover Tennessee, the only thing that, just to piggyback on LSU, Cameron, I told you this season ends 2 ways for Brian Kelly. He's in the SEC Championship or he's fired. It's kind of do or die for him this season because they're just, his players don't like him.
I agree with you in the do or die, but I don't know that it's going to take an SEC championship because you have a Georgia and Texas. I think making the playoff may be the criteria for maintaining a job.
Yeah, that's true. We could definitely end up with a Ryan Day scenario too in this one. Now, going on to Tennessee, the reason that I've got them at 10 and not 11 is because I was back and forth between Alabama and Tennessee at 10. The reason that I take Tennessee over Alabama is there's so many unknowns, like Cameron was saying. You really don't know who's going to be at the helm there. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, at Tennessee, they finally have depth over the last couple of years. They showed that a lot this past year from a defensive standpoint, but they've got some big, heavy hitters coming in on the offense, especially on the offensive line. Taking over for Kate Mays, who was just best center in the SEC for a couple of years now. They've got another 5-star coming in behind him. Yeah, one of the top receivers transferred out to Florida State, being Squirrel White, but they got Mike Matthews as a 5-star right behind him, and a couple returning as well. So they've got depth there. Like Cameron said earlier, for those trending up teams, what he looks at is the depth. That's what I see here, and that's why I got them at 10.
The other huge call out is seniority. Clemson is doing an excellent job right now of retention and maintaining the roster that they've got. You've got Klubnik coming back. You've got majority of a roster that's pretty well ready to go. I think they'll easily make a run for ownership of the ACC next year.
Yeah, guys. For mine, not too much more to add. I have South Carolina up there pretty high. I really like their potential for next year with Lenore Sellers and Homeboy just got the new deal there. I realize I don't have Notre Dame on here. I think I'm just a little soured on them after their national championship performance. They played great in the second half. I'll give them that, but I just don't see it. I had to throw some love to Alabama. That this team, no matter what you say about them, they just have so much talent. I mean, they're still one of the most talented teams in the country. And then I wanted to throw a little love to Iowa State and Matt Campbell because they have Rocco Beck coming back next year. I think they have both their leading tailbacks coming back next year, and they just have a really good program there. Their offense is going to be good. I wanted to throw a Midwest team some love, so unfortunately, Notre Dame got the boot for me. But I like Iowa State.
Iowa State and Texas Tech are definitely our front runners in the Big 12. I'm happy to see that somebody actually gave them some inclusion here. Whether or not they're a top 10 team is up for debate, but the playoff isn't built around what's fair. So
yeah, I've definitely got Iowa State up there, not that high, but I've probably got them in the top 15. We'll see that.
Would you guys
disagree?
Would you guys agree that preseason rankings or any rankings in general up until the middle of the season are stupid? Because I totally think they're ridiculous.
Absolutely. They're fun to talk about and they're fun to speculate on, but you have no idea. I mean, there could be something catastrophic that happens week one, like
FSU
losing to Georgia Tech in Ireland. I mean, you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even know what's going to happen after spring camp. So these rankings themselves are pretty ridiculous, but everyone does them, so we're going to do them. But moving from speculation to reality, we got a reality check here on Settle for Three with a lot of comments this week. We appreciate you commenting. Keep doing it, positive or negative. We want to hear from you. But if you're wrong, we're going to call you out. And Evan's going to share some comments that he highlighted for our last word tonight.
Yeah, I've got 3 here specifically that I want to go through. And like I said, Joey, thank you everybody that's been commenting. We love texting back and forth and talking about how dumb some of them are and how fun some of the other ones are. So first off, I've got Lee G here calling the Chiefs the most overrated 15-2 team he's ever seen. And also talking about how we just pick and choose statistics that we like to justify what we're talking about, which he later commented back again, picking out stats from last night's game, defending why the Bills lost and how it wasn't the Chiefs playing well. All I got to say to that is that comment aged poorly, and you probably need to learn a little bit more about football.
Isn't that how normal people argue, though, or make their point? They find facts that benefit what they're going to say and then argue that? Like, what do you want? What do you want us to do?
What is it, like 99.9% of stats are made up? They're all biased. It's the objective is to be biased towards a conversation that you want to lead.
That was really ironic. That was really ironic, Cameron.
Yeah, my apologies. As the guy that usually goes and crunches stuff.
hey, 60% of the time it works 100% of the time. Ricky Bobby.
Love it.
100% of the shots you don't take. All right, number 2, we got Annoying Gamer that when the question was posed last week of who is the only quarterback who has had a receiving touchdown the last 2 seasons, the only quarterback that we didn't talk about maybe was Jared Goff, who was his guess. all I got to say is do better and listen to what we're talking about.
To be fair, Goff did have one. He didn't have two. He did have one, though.
He did have one. He did have
He did
one.
have
So you could also just give it a quick Google. But again, appreciate your comment. And last but not least, Joey, just want to get your take on this from Sam, who, man, Sam, love your comment. He wrote, Commanders win and the under hits. Good pick, guy. Well, if you didn't know, that guy was Joey.
Yeah.
So let's get your thoughts.
Did I say the over? I don't remember.
You said the under hits.
Oh, I see. Okay, so I was just way off. Well,
Well, you took the under and the Commanders to hit on that one.
well,
It
hey,
doesn't
man,
always.
it's your fault if you put money on my picks. That's on you. That's not on me. Thanks for watching. Uh,
Yeah.
okay, so Washington was a reach. I'll give you that.
Well, that's all I got. Again, everybody, thank you for commenting. Please do. I love looking through these, and I really love calling
We
people
all
out.
do.
Yeah. So, Evan, take us out.
Yeah, again, everybody, thank you for watching. If you made it this far, please like, comment, subscribe, follow us on everything you see down there below. We are getting more active on all the social media sites and trying to pump out a lot more content. We appreciate you watching, and come back next week.